Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Hong Kong and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, a lot of different styles, but if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're probably best known for their different kinds of sour beers and wild ales. They've won a lot of awards for those and they're definitely one of the best in Asia in that particular style category. They've got a number of conventional beers as well, which are very, very good. They do a number of IPAs and lagers and things like this, and the beer that we're going to have a look at today is one of those more conventional styles. So this one is a style that I've had from this brewery many times before. It's one that I know they can do very, very well, and I actually tried this beer on tap at its launch party. So I know this one was good on tap, but I'm quite curious to see how the canned version turns out, because I do like this brewery's canned beers actually. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. Hopefully it's as good as I remember, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to stick to Hong Kong like I said. We're going to go a little bit to the northwest of me here in Kowloon, up to an area called Kwai, Chung, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Yardley Brothers Brewery. So yeah, this particular beer is called Befuddlement. It comes in at 6% ABV. It's a New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. And it's hopped with Citra, Mosaic and Nelson Sauvin from what I understand. So a little bit of a classic mix there. This one was released at the start of April 2025 along with two other beers which you'll see reviewed on the channel very soon. This one is completely new, whereas the other two were rebrews or this year's recipes if you like, and you'll see those two appearing on the channel fairly soon. But yeah, 6% hazy IPA this one. I'm curious to see how much this one reminds me of Vossboss in the can, because Vossboss is their kind of mainstay hazy IPA. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what it's going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Yardley Brothers Brewery before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. There's all the usual social media down there too. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. Put in your hometown, state, county, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries, and you'll find this one in the Hong Kong playlist along with a number of other things, but do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well. So yeah, let's crack on and go on to the brewery history section then. So the Yardley Brothers Brewery was founded by Luke and Duncan Yardley, and the two brothers are half Scottish and half English. So Luke previously worked as a parts wholesaler and ended up staying in Hong Kong after meeting a girl. That relationship didn't work out, and then he met another one and ended up marrying her. So he and Duncan had homebrewed back at home in England, and then they took it up again when Duncan joined Luke in Hong Kong in 2014. And the main reason behind this was that they couldn't get the beer that they wanted to drink themselves. So the first brewery they had was in a small shack on Lamma Island, but then in December of 2016 they opened up a production brewery on the 5th floor of an industrial building, and they did that simply because the rent was cheaper up there. And you know, if you know anything about Hong Kong, you will know that the real estate rents and prices and things like that are just absolutely horrendous. But apparently when they moved into this brewery, the tanks wouldn't fit in the elevator, so 8 people had to actually push them up the stairs. But they stayed in this brewery for a good number of years, and it was in the Kwai Chung area, as I mentioned earlier, at the Wat Industrial Centre. So these days they have the Beer Shack Barrow on Lamma Island, which is not the original Beer Shack, I hasten to add, and they've also got a tap room on Peel Street in Central, which I believe has just celebrated its 3rd anniversary. But over the last few years they've been developing their barrel program to do sour beers, which they started back in 2018, and they moved into a new and larger brewery, still in Kwai Chung though, to the northwest of Kowloon, and they moved in there in 2023 if I'm not mistaken. But these days the company is run by Luke along with his wife Ting Ting. Luke is doing a lot of the brewing and stuff like this, and Ting Ting I think is taking care of a lot of the business side of things. But in 2025 they launched their seltzers, and as of April 2025, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 170 different types of beer of all different styles. So yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Yardley Brothers Brewery for the moment. Again, if you want to learn more, check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Rate Beer's dead now. You can check out the Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. As you can see, I quite like this. It's kind of, I think this is from one of the famous Greek or Roman statues or something like that. I really recognise these eyes and the face on this, and you know, I think it will be from something like that. You can see the ear there as well, and it says on the side here, Befuddlement. Oh wait, have I put that down? Yeah, I've put that upside down. Befuddlement, there you go, and there you can also see Yardley Brothers Brewery. Plain silver top on the can. This one is 330 millilitres, and it tells you a wee bit about the beer on the back here as well. So it says, once you enter the fog of befuddlement, you won't want to leave. With massive citrus, tropical and green fruit notes from a late addition blend of American Citra and Mosaic hops, and heavily dry hop with Nelson Sauvin direct from a small farmer in New Zealand, we're not befuddled at all about how tasty this is. Yeah, 6% New England Hazy IPA. This one should be really nice. We know the hops in this, of course. Nelson Sauvin from New Zealand, 16% alpha acid. It's going to give you that big white, green, grapey, gooseberry type note. Citra and Mosaic, both American, both 14% alpha acid. Citra in a New England IPA will give you lots of juicy mango, a little bit of peach and some lemony limey notes. And then Mosaic is going to give you that big tangerine orange with that little hint of earthiness in the back of the palate. So yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what it's all about. If I can get my finger under the ring, there we go. Oh, it got a little bit excited, it seems. There we go. So put this out into the glass. There we are. We'll just sugar up the last little bit, and there we are. Oh, the carbonation sticking to the side of the glass. Yeah, there we go. All right, so not much head on this one. That's interesting, actually. So yeah, anyway, carbonation sticking there as well. But yeah, anyway, as you can see, this beer is not the soupiest and gloopiest of New England IPAs that you're going to come across, but it's poured a lovely kind of bright yellow mango juice colour, this one. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well, but you don't often have to care about that when it comes to different kinds of IPAs. But yeah, this one certainly looks more mango juice coloured than anything else. I always like using different fruit juices to fit the descriptions of these New England IPAs, because that's just what they really remind me of. But yeah, there's a fair little bit of carbonation visible in this one. There's no head on it for some reason, which I'm a little bit surprised about, in honesty. Maybe all the carbonation rushed to the top of the can there when I opened it up. I got too excited. But yeah, in terms of the level of haziness in this one, like I said, it's not the soupiest and gloopiest of New England IPAs that I've come across before. Remember, the level of haze in these ones depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use, and that can vary from beer to beer, brewery to brewery, and so on. But in terms of what you'd expect appearance-wise from a hazy IPA, there's nothing really untoward with this one. But yeah, just surprised that there's no head on it, actually. So yeah, there we go. Yeah, I don't think we need to say anything more about the appearance of this one. So let's go on and have a wee look at the aroma then, and I'm very, very curious about this, actually. Ah, yeah, okay. This one actually comes across as being really nicely balanced, but very soft aroma. You kind of notice that with Yardley hazy IPAs, they always have this real kind of softness, but a slight wetness to them as well. And you know, when you try breweries very, very often, you start to notice little things about the beers. I like to think that if I tried hazy IPAs from the different Hong Kong breweries, I'd probably tell you which one it belongs to. But yeah, this one, very soft and very quite, you know, really quite juicy aroma. As I've often said, hazy IPAs, for me, there are 6 elements to think about when it comes to the malty and yeasty side of these things. So you have the kind of rye leaning grainy side and the farmhousey yeasty side of things. Those are a bit more common in American brewed, or New England brewed New England IPAs I should say, because the style started out as a farmhouse IPA. But then yeah, you've also, as the style's evolved and moved to other places, you've got wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also the sweeter side of things. So this one for me it has a little bit of the yeastiness to it for sure, but yeah, for me it's fairly oaty leaning and fairly it's got a little bit of the oat, but I think there's a little bit of the wheat in there, and yeah, you got a lot of the barley, so I think it's kind of well balanced between 4 of those things, but definitely not that sweet, we can say that for sure. So let's just break down that aroma and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So for me, the backbone of this beer, as you very often get, is that fresh white bready bread crust in there. So yeah, lovely fresh white bready bread crust in there. There's a little touch of wood, fair amount of cracker in this one actually as well. But then yeah, you've got a lot of soft, fluffy white bread. I wouldn't be surprised if they're using a little bit of Oss yeast in this as well. In honesty, I'd be curious to know what yeast they're using in here. But yeah, lots of fluffy white bread, and they're slightly dry white bread, I would say. If you take the aroma in a little bit more deeply, you get a little bit of the wheaty bitiness at the back of the nose, but you can smell it. It's quite a smooth wheat in this one. As I've often said, European wheat is a bit more bitey than American wheat. American wheat is very smooth. North American wheat, I should say. So yeah, that's kind of what's coming to mind with this one. So yeah, lovely little bit of wheaty, like more dense wheaty white bread coming out of this one. So dense, smooth, wheaty white bread in there. There's a little touch of sweetness, and maybe just a little bit of that, like Werther's original butter candy, butterscotchy note coming out of it, and maybe a tiny little bit of biscuit as well. But yeah, when you take the aroma in quite deeply, you get that little bit more bitiness out of the nose in this one. So yeah, that's the wheat that's giving you that, but it smells really nice actually. In terms of the yeasty side of this beer then, the yeasty character at the back of the nose. So for me, the yeasty side of things with this one, the yeasty side of things with this one, it's, there's a little touch of like brown bread to it, and it's almost slightly sweet. But mainly like a kind of denser white bread and a little touch of like bread crust and cracker and things like that. So yeah, the way that that goes to, yeah, the sweet dense brown bread, the fluffy white bread in there, and then yeah, you've got that more bread crusty note too. The yeasty character in this one is quite nice, but as I say, there's something that makes me want to say there's maybe a little bit of Oss yeast in this. It feels familiar, it reminds me of Osbos a little bit. But yeah, aroma-wise, the malty yeasty side of this one is very, very nice. Let's go to the hoppy and fruity side of things with this one then. As I've mentioned in many a New England IPA review, there are 3 types of hoppings that you can do. Early edition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil, that gives you a deep, dank green component, and it's responsible for the vast majority of your bitterness. You've got late edition hopping, which will give you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma, and it's going to give you a very bright green component. And then you've got the dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete. That's all about flavour and aroma, and again, it's a very bright green component that you're going to get out of that. So West Coast IPAs tend to use all 3 types of hoppings, which is why they are deeper, danker and more oily. New England IPAs tend to rely on late edition and dry hopping, which is why they're kind of softer and more juicy and have a brighter green component. And it's very obvious with this beer that that is the case. The late edition and dry hopping for the most part, your green component is nice and soft but kind of quite bright. So yeah, the green component in this one for me, it's the green component for me, it has a nice little bit of it's got a lovely little touch of earthiness to it, which is going to come from the mosaic, but for the most part it's nice and floral. It smells quite, the green component in this one actually smells pretty oily, I would say. So yeah, the green component here is really quite oily for me. Lovely floral aromaticity, nice little bit of kind of grassy, zesty character coming out of it. Yeah, I don't think there's too much else to say about that side of it. So yeah, I think that's that. But the fruity side of this one, it's pretty much as you would expect. Yeah, fruity side of this beer, if you know these hops, yeah, it's exactly as you would expect. So yeah, you can smell that lovely big white-green gooseberry, white-green grapey gooseberry note out of this one from the Nelson Sauvin. That seems to be the backbone of the beer. But on top of that, yeah, you're getting that, a little touch of the peach, and like, I'm not getting so much mango out of this, which is kind of interesting. For me, there's the little bit of sharpness of the peach, and a little bit of like a more apricot-y type character. Those elements will be from the Citra. And as I say, surprised that there's not more mango to it. Maybe in the flavour we'll get more mango. But there's also that nice tangerine orangey note from the... there's also, yeah, that nice tangerine orangey note from the mosaic coming out of this one too. But yeah, when you smell this, the hops in it, the fruity side of it is very, very familiar. So just be aware of that. But yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of your beer before you get stuck into it. This one smells very, very nice, and I'm just curious to try it again now. So yeah, this one is the Befuddlement 6% New England Hazy IPA from Yardley Brothers Brewery, Kwai, Chung, in the New Territories here in Hong Kong. Citra, Mosaic, but mostly Nelson Sauvin from what I understand. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, that is pretty damn nice. It's a bit lighter and wetter than I remember it being on tap. So maybe I think maybe the oats come out in the tap version a little bit more. But yeah, and I'm getting more of the barley malt out of this one too, actually, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, that's another very, very solid hazy IPA from Yardley Brothers Brewery. They know how to do this style, they do, but as I say, I think the best beers, or the most unusual ones that you'll get from Yardley Brothers, are the sour beers. For me, that's the kind of signature of Yardley Brothers. The sour beers are the ones that have very often stood out to me. Yeah, this is pretty damn good, so big thumbs up to the guys at Yardley's for this one. So, yeah, as I say, this one, I get a little bit more wheat in the flavour, but yeah, the barley malt really kind of lingers in this one. It's not too oaty either, in fact, just a little bit of oatiness to it. But yeah, I like it, and it's a wee touch more bitter than I was expecting from it as well. But yeah, let's just break down the flavour of this one then, and describe it for you more in depth as we always do. So yeah, for me, middle third of the palate, backbone of this beer, as it usually is that kind of soft white bready bread crust. As you move further forward there, you get that little touch of you get that little touch of like woody note out of it. Then you can feel a sort of, there's a layer that's like a kind of smattering of there's a smattering of like Jacob's cream cracker coming out of this one, which is really, really nice. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust, little bit of wood, a little bit of Jacob's cream cracker. Then on top of that, there is actually a bit of a layer of like wholemeal brown bread for sure. So the wholemeal brown bready thing is there. Then above that you get a layer of above that you get a layer of a more white bready kind of character as well. The white bready character, the bready notes in this beer are actually a little bit drier. This beer does get drier and drier into the aftertaste, I would say. So that's definitely there. So yeah, the soft white bready bread crust and the drier bready notes above that. Then you can feel that there's a more dense then you can feel that there's a more dense wheaty character coming out of this one. So yeah, the more dense wheaty white bread is there. It gets a little bit bitier further back on the palate. As I've often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours tend to come out further back. So you've got the wheaty white bready layer above that. Then down the middle line of your tongue, you can feel there's just a little touch of oaty character there. You get it's more creamy, and then as you move out toward the edges of your palate, it gets a little bit more it gets a little bit more kind of dry and oaty, I would say. So yeah, Yeah. So you get that little bit more of a kind of oaty dryness coming out of this one as well. Yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really, really nice. Yeah, it's a fairly dry beer, this one. It's not got too much in the way of sweetness either. If you go to the dead centre of your palate, you've got that little circle there. There's maybe just a little touch of like Werther's a wee tiny touch of that Werther's original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing, and maybe just a little bit of biscuit around it. But really, this one isn't all that sweet at all, to be quite honest with you. So that's quite interesting. Yeah, so I think that covers everything we need to say about the middle third of your palate then. So let's go to the back third of your palate. In the border region, of course, between these two areas, you get that little bit of bready build-up, the wee bit of brown bread in the base and the white bread on top, and a wee bit more of the wheaty bitiness in there. But yeah, the base of that back third of your palate, you've got the Jacob's, you've got the bread crust in there, the kind of Jacob's cream cracker, the brown bready layer, which feels a little bit lighter, taller, and more airy, a bit drier as well, I hasten to add. Then you've got the white bready layer above that, which is a little bit which is the same actually, taller, lighter, more airy. Then you can feel the wheaty layer above that, which is really quite bitey, and of course you've got the yeasty notes there. So let's focus on the yeasty side of this one. So yeah, yeasty side of this beer for me, at its core, it feels like it's a slightly sweeter, brown bready character. And further out it's a slightly more dry white bready note, and then yeah, kind of bread crusty on the very end. But yeah, the back third of your palate, the yeast comes out a little bit more into the aftertaste, and I'm not sure, but I wonder if there is, as I say, I wonder if there is a bit of Voss yeast in this. There's just something very familiar about this in the context of Yardley beers. But yeah, the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavours taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really, really nice. Yeah, so happy with the malty and yeasty side of this one for sure. So the hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate, you've got that nice little touch of earthiness in there. That's your mosaic, of course. And this beer, it does build in bitterness further into the aftertaste that you go. I mean, I do get a little bit of pine resin out of this one, and all three of the hops in this are capable of giving you that. So you can feel that little bit of pine resin-y note there. And that wasn't expected based on the aroma. But as you move further forward toward the front corners of your palate, you've got more floral aromaticity. So yeah, there's a little bit more floral aromaticity in there. And then round the front curve of your tongue, this beer is just that little bit kind of lighter and more grassy, I would say. A little touch zesty as well. But let's look at the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of things. So yeah, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build-up in there again. Pardon me. In the base, you've got the brown bready character. In the middle, you've got the kind of more white bready, barley malt white bready notes, and then above that, you have the above that you've got the more kind of wheaty white bready notes. So the base of this the front third, the base of the front third of your palate here is the base of the front third of your palate is a little bit more I would say, yeah, you've got that kind of brown bready bread crust again. You've got the Jacob's cream cracker, the brown bread, the white bread, and then the wheaty notes. And the wheaty notes at the front of your palate are actually that little bit smoother, but then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll away out of the beer. So let's have a little look at the fruity esters in this one then. So yeah, for me, the fruity esters in this beer are quite it's kind of what you'd expect actually. So it feels like across that whole front third of your palate, the Nelson Sauvin sits there, the white, green, grapey sort of gooseberry type flavours. It's very, very obvious in this one. So yeah, that is that's sitting there for sure. On top of that, you can feel like on the back half of that front third of your palate, you can feel there's a little bit of a sharper peachy note there. As you go down, yeah, you get a little bit of a kind of guava mango sort of thing, then a wee touch of passion fruit, and as you move further forward toward the middle of that front third of your palate, yeah, you've got little bits of apricot and maybe pineapple and things. All those tropical notes are coming from the citra in this one. But yeah, as you move further forward into the front half of the front third of your palate, it's more about the mosaic, that tangerine orange, but I do get a fair little bit of lime out of the out of this one. If they didn't say what hops were in this, I would have suspected there was a little bit of Motueka or maybe Equinaut in this one. So yeah, this one, I do get a fair little bit of limey character into the aftertaste for sure. But yeah, the fruity side of this one is pretty nice. The Nelson Sauvin really is kind of showing its, yeah, it's really showing itself in this beer for sure. Yeah. So for me, this one, it's not, when I think about this compared to the tap version, I think the tap version just has a bit more thickness and a bit more kind of creaminess to it, if you like. So I think this is one of the ones where I do actually like the tap version a little bit more than the can. I think if they're going to do a can batch, just up the oak content a little bit on this and just thicken it up that little bit. That's something I would say. But yeah, and all the flavour in this one is very, very nice actually, but a slightly more bitter New England IPA, I think I would say as well. So interesting stuff. But the Nelson, it says the Nelson Sauvin is from a it says the Nelson Sauvin is from a small farmer in New Zealand. So yeah, interesting. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour of this one. So let's just round off with a wee look at the mouthfeel. For me, the mouthfeel in this beer, I'd say mid-bodied, smooth carbonation, a little bit wet of course, and this beer does give you a fair little bit of dryness into the aftertaste. In terms of its IBU, I want to say this one has a little bit more. I want to say this is maybe about 40-ish IBUs rather than the standard 30. But yeah, there's a little bit in the malt base, it's a bit dry underneath, smoother in the middle, and smooth and dry on top. It's not really got much sweetness to it, this beer. And then yeah, you've got a mix of kind of tropical and sort of citrusy fruit coming out of this one. But all in all, another very, very nice beer from Yardley Brothers Brewery, and I would recommend you try it. But I think this one is a little bit thicker on tap, and that brings out the flavours that little bit more. So yeah, that's everything about this. This was the Befuddlement, a 6% hazy IPA from the wonderful Yardley Brothers Brewery in Kwai, Chung, in the New Territories here in Hong Kong. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Yardley Brothers Brewery as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out their social media, and I'll see you guys later.